I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, yeah,
My
get your priorities straight, hey? Yeah.
Oh, really?
Ryan, at the end of December, when I'm out of this seat.
we haven't seen any.
Yeah.
I think that you guys,
What a tough year.
that scatters the bucks.
Well, there's that one zone.
Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Can I get a motion to approve the county board minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Any further discussion? None? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, National Adoption Month Proclamation. Katie, Krista, and Kim, come on up and. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I see we have an adoption proclamation today. Did you want to read that for us?
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas there are over 700 Minnesota children in need of permanent and loving homes that are under the guardianship of the state of Minnesota, 21 of these children that need permanency by adoption are Morrison County children. And whereas almost all of these children have special needs because of physical, mental, or emotional disabilities, because they must be placed as a sibling group, or because they are school-aged. And whereas these children need extra patience and support to have them overcome previous hardships, children benefit from the connections to their family and their community supports. And whereas children that age out of foster care are more likely to become homeless, incarcerated, or need the support of welfare benefits. Whereas in 2021, there will be 3 Morrison County children with special needs adopted by families. These families are able and willing to adopt children who have special needs, willing to attend special services and training in order to meet the needs of children. And whereas children waiting for adoptive parents, as well as children and families, have completed adoptions require and deserve community and public agency support. And now, therefore, be it resolved that November is hereby declared Adoption Awareness Month in Morrison County, dated this 9th day of November, 2021.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Is there any further discussion? I'd just like to thank you for all you do. There's a lot of kids out there that need parents, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
There are many things that social services does, and all of them, as far as I'm concerned, are good things, please. We all understand that. But anytime that we're talking about children, and then we're going to throw in special needs children, and we're talking about adoption, it takes such special people to do this. And it has to start with you. And then it has to start with the new mom and dad, if you want to say it that way. But it has to start somewhere. So truly, thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate that a lot.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wincher.
if I may, thank you. To help out with this proclamation, so how does one, if interested in adopting, where do I begin? Do I talk to you at social services? I mean, if you can give us who would I contact?
So if you strictly want to adopt, there's a couple different options. You can go through a private agency that supports adopting from foster care, or you can contact our intake worker at Morrison County if you're interested in fostering to adopt. And so the difference being fostering to adopt is you're caring for the child prior to parental rights being terminated, and you would start with intake, and then we would get you licensed as a foster parent here in Morrison County and go through that process. And then you would be licensed to do foster care and adopt at that point.
So there you're kind of on a trial basis if you're in foster care, if you want to adopt that child, is that kind of how it works? Or can I say, you know what, I'm looking at maybe adopting someone, so I go to a private agency, or you would say, I don't have to be in foster care to adopt, correct?
Correct. You can, to adopt from the foster system, you still have to be licensed to do foster care, because in a sense, you're fostering until you adopt the child.
Okay.
But if your sole goal is to adopt, and maybe not be in the limbo period of when a parent is working towards reunifying with a child, then generally a private agency would support those needs.
All right, thanks for the information.
Anybody have anything else? No, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gemma?
Do we want to fit? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. We got a motion, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank
Do
you.
you guys want to come behind here? We'll get a picture, Beth.
Who's this down? It might cover up my face.
Come on, come on, come on. Come on, we gotta sneak in here. Have Crystal hold it back.
Everybody ready? On your best smiles. One more. And just for safety.
Stand, thank you. Thank you all very, very kindly.
Okay, next, we're going to have Little Falls Airport. Greg? How are you this morning?
Wonderful.
Morning, Greg.
Morning. So before you this morning, we have two change orders for our Crosswind Airport construction project. If you recall, we had a project out there to pave and realign the Crosswind runway. It was originally a grass runway, now it's a paved runway. It was a $1.7 million project overall with construction and engineering. The two changers that we have, one is in the amount of $6,660. And the second one is in the amount of $9,615.11. The reason for the two change orders is that it was split over two construction seasons. Originally, it was planned to be in one construction season, so the contractor had to move equipment off-site and then back on-site, as well as the increased cost in oil for the paving. Both of the change orders are not eligible for the grant funding. If you recall, it's a 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local share, which is split between the county and the city. So these two items would go towards the local share component of it, but we are asking the board to confirm that. The airport did recommend approving that as well, and the same with the city council. So if the board would, we would look for confirmation to approve the two change orders in the amount stated.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion?
Where the money comes from?
It comes from our AIP grant fund. So the airport gets $150,000 every year to do improvement projects. We've banked quite a bit of those funds up, and so it'll just come out of those funds for this.
And you're okay with these change orders? They're
Yes,
within the
yep.
contract?
They are, yep. The one was requesting much more than that. We were able to knock it down to $9,600 and change. But yes, we feel that those are justified based on the work that they did.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Greg. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, next we got Fish Trap Lid. Welcome. Is the water frozen up there yet?
Not quite.
Hasn't snowed yet either.
No.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, Commissioners. It's always a pleasure keeping you guys kind of up to date on what's going on at our lake. This year, probably the craziest year we've ever had, and everybody knows that from all angles. Bad recipe with the weather and everything that was going on, the drought, was the perfect recipe for a lot of weeds. So I was footing calls all summer about what are we gonna do about these weeds, and most of them are native. A lot of water celery, the light getting down into the shallow water. The zebra mussels have always been part of that figure in there. So we get a lot of people that, could we harvest this stuff out? Can we get this stuff, away from our dock? And I said, you can do whatever you want as far as around your dock, but people want the weeds gone. And I always tell them, it's the lungs of the lake. If the weeds are there and you take the weeds out, you're just gonna get algae. So water clarity was pretty good this year. We did decide this year to go with R&B's delineation, which means that we tested a lot more of the area around the lake instead of point intercept. With that, we ended up finding about 49 acres this year of curly leaf, as opposed to years where we had 9 acres here and 5 acres there. So we put about $20,000 into the treatment and the testing. So this was one of those years where as we had good years, we were able to utilize that money that we had in the accounts to fix that. So we just got a little bit of our information back from R&B Labs this year to see just how good we did with the test, or I should say with the weed control. And it looks like we did pretty good. I didn't get the maps back yet. R&B had a few people leave their group there, so they're kind of retraining people. So I think I saw like 2 or 3 areas where we still had some curly leaf as they did the fall check of the lake. So with that, I think we did really good with curly leaf. It's just the native weeds, and it's part of what we have to deal with. Another thing this year is that we just got that new station in, as the association put that in with the help of you guys. And with that, we are going to be helping with the maintenance of that to some extent. So we'll have to see how that goes this year. I'll turn you over to our treasurer and let Chris do some talking here.
Morning, Chris.
Morning, everyone. First, I need to thank both Beth for her assistance yesterday and Tabitha. We had a last-minute revision to our running budget. That is not the document that is up on the screen. Tabitha said that she would be able to get it into your packet.
Yep.
Do you have
Yep.
the one with the big red revised?
Yep.
Okay, because I brought copies if need be, but I just wanted to offer a thanks to both of these nice ladies for my help, because I typically much prefer to come in here far more prepared and put together than what that revision ended up.
This is the one you're talking about, the red, right?
Yep, it's red.
Because I don't think it shows up on there, does it? Yep, I think,
Our period is from January 1st, 2021 to November 3rd, 2021. That's what ours states.
No, that's the financial report. I'm talking about the 3-year running budget.
Yes, it's revised.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, great.
It's red.
To begin with, ending the 2020 calendar year with a balance of nearly $50,000, just as we had done also in 2019. The LID decided again not to seek any potential grant monies, nor change the 2020 property owner's assessment of $40 for 2021. This was presented at the annual meeting this summer, and the audience, of course, had no objections to maintaining that cost. However, I do need to call to your attention some differences between the budgeted amounts and the actual costs that have occurred this year. As you know, this running budget is put together shortly before meeting with you gentlemen. And as Tom was stating earlier, Last year, we saw a slight increase in the amount of curly leaf pondweed, which is an invasive species that, through our lid, we treat with chemical into the lake. We were concerned that there might be ongoing increases, and knowing that we had such a healthy budget to begin the year with, we did decide to do a delineation study. It hadn't been done for at least 5 years, and that checks many more areas throughout the lake. And consequently, by having more areas tested, we ended up with 49 acres of identified curly leaf pondweed, and we were able to get the DNR to accept all 49 acres, and so they were treated. Due to that large acreage, we did end up exceeding our budgeted amount from the running budget by $10,000, but we had that well covered with the amount of money that we did have in our account. Next, you will note under the green highlight, the estimated CD3 cleaning station software amount. When the money from Morrison County and the Fish Trap Lake Property Owners Association came together and allowed the purchase of this unit, the Lake Improvement District was contacted and said, can you maybe help us out? And the LID did agree to maintain the software going forward. We had put it into this year's budget because we knew that the installation was going to take place. However, the initial software installation costs and associated fees were all incorporated into the invoice that the association paid. And they were able to pick up the smaller amount that actually turned out from between the grant monies and what they had. Going forward into 2022 and beyond, yes, we will be paying for the annual software fee. And that's that $1,000 line item that you see under 2022. Biggest budget change for 2022 just happened yesterday, as far as creating an actual line item with a potential budgeted amount. Earlier this summer, we received an email from Chelsea Robinson. In that email, she had explained to all of the lake improvement districts that they have audit reporting responsibilities to the state of Minnesota. We were not aware of that. We were chartered in 2008, and for whatever reason, we have been operating since that time, not realizing that we had state reporting responsibilities. No harm, no foul. Mary Henning at the state was very understanding. I was a little nervous, of course, talking to her, not knowing what potential penalties or whatever we could possibly face by not being in compliance. But no, she was very helpful. And it explained that for our average annual budget, or dollars received, we would only once every 5 years have to have a CPA conduct a procedures audit, if you will, just to make sure that we're doing things the way we're supposed to, we are keeping proper records, and nobody's absconding with any monies for whatever purpose. We've been contacting various CPAs, and we finally yesterday received the first quote back, and that is from a firm in Little Falls. They also have offices in St. Cloud and a few other places. Anyway, we received a quote that averaged between $4,900 and $5,100. We want to be able to at least have a comparative quote from another firm. I have put a request into a firm in Staples, which also conducts this type of process. I had also tried to contact another individual who works for a firm, only to find out that their firm does not do this type of audit process. and they themselves couldn't do it individually. But I still will play golf with her on Monday mornings during the summer. So that is why you see in the red, the estimated CPA cost for special district state-required compliance audit of $5,000. It was given to us as a not to exceed, and I believe it was 4,900 to 5,115, so hopefully, worst-case scenario, that's all we'll have to expend. And as I said, it's once every 5 years based on our budgetary thresholds. To conclude, if you look at our year-to-date financial report, we right now have an ending balance of more than $33,000. We are still awaiting the fall invoice from RMB, but that should not exceed any more than $3,800. Actually, it will be less than what the spring delineation survey itself cost, because they then just check those areas. And we have yet to receive the second payment from the auditor's office for the other half of the 2021 assessment. That usually comes in toward the end of this month. So by my estimation, we should have approximately $34,000 at year end. And without including next year's assessment payments, this should give us an approximate $10,000 buffer going into next year, even if there were no monies, based on what we have estimated for expenditures for next year and what this year's concluding budget is. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve their work plan, budget, and levy for the Lake Fish Trap Improvement District.
Okay, we got a.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. Any further discussion? Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, maybe I missed it, or maybe this, you're wanting us to approve a $40.
Per property
Levy.
owner
Do you have
assessment.
what it was for last year? Did I?
40.
It was 40. It was the same. Okay, I must have missed that. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Jelinski.
And Mr. Chair, I just have one question, and it goes back to curly leaf. When you spray for, drop chemical on, whatever it is that you do, doesn't make any difference to me. It only takes care of curly leaf, it does nothing to any of the
No,
natural
it'll kill
stuff?
native too, but that's why the DNR is so,
Okay,
very, they strap their boots pretty tight with that. So, when we have enough of the curly leaf is so invasive that it'll just crowd out everything else.
Yep.
And the reason we never want to overdo it is if you leave it a void from hitting some natural stuff, well, then the curly leaf's just gonna take that spot.
okay.
So, it's kind of a crazy science. I for one, I'm certified naturopathy, so I hate chemicals.
Okay,
And aquathol, they're saying metabolizes fast and does its job, and it's not supposed to create problems with the lake. So, we're taking their word for that,
okay.
So, everybody's been doing this for years, and well before I became chairman of this group. But you're hoping that the DNR is the ultimate,
It's on top of it, yeah.
stopgap on that if we ever had chemical that wasn't working right. But that's kind of what happens, is we try to stay away from hurting any of the native crop.
Sure,
Like we
sure.
had this year. So,
Excellent.
And if I may?
Yep.
Add, curly leaf is one of the first emergent weeds in a lake.
Oh,
We have to operate the treatment under a certain temperature
right.
range to not injure the other potential
Okay.
native weeds.
Good,
So
very good point. Yeah, as you go into the lake in the spring, it looks like a desert down there. There's no weeds.
Yep.
But the ones that are already grown and maybe a foot, 2 feet already coming up from the bottom is the curly leaf. So that's why they can identify it real fast when they start throwing their rake through the water right away in the spring. So it works out really well, but that way we're not killing the beds of the native areas. So, yeah, I think we've done pretty good. This was just one of those years where it was cycling, so.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lemire?
How's the water level doing on?
It's getting better.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
good.
coming back up with the rain that we had for the fall.
Do you have issues with floating bogs like Alec does?
You know, we did last year because it was high, but it was just a couple of small, not like Alec has these islands of cattails, where our cattails are kind of pushed back into small little creeks, and they don't create as much of a problem.
Okay.
So we thought about that as a budget, but then you have to create another whole group that's gonna try and take care of that.
Yeah.
And even Action Doc, who's over there, he's getting to the point where he just doesn't wanna do that anymore.
Okay.
Burns up his boat motors trying to get them moved, so,
All right, well, I just want to say thank you for the plan that you provided and appreciate everything you do.
yeah, well, thank you guys for putting up with us.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Right,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Do we have anybody here from Extension?
We have Suzanne. We have Suzanne online, but she just emailed me saying that she cannot hear us. So I was just, she had audio one time, but connected by phone. If you need me during the Extension MOA discussion, you can call my cell phone at 218. So it would be multiple forms of conversation. So what we have in the packet for you today to consider is the maintenance of agreement between our county and the Extension Office for staff and our relationship. It's a 3-year contract that we do every 3 years. And so that is what we have in front of us.
Okay, can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion? Commissioner Wincher?
And if I may, and Commissioner Blaine can, hopefully he can agree or disagree. Well, I'd rather him agree. This is something that we both sit on the extension, and we had this discussion. It was voted by the extension committee to approve this salary here. I just want to note, and I'm sure I can be corrected, but I believe it was higher in 2021, the sum was, so it did reduce somewhat from 2021 to 2022, so you're seeing a total of 119 and change. So that was less in 2021, so we did go down the first year, and then it kind of goes back up just to do the cost of living, so. There's a few other things in here where the university participates and everything, so moving forward, this is bringing everything with accordance for the next 3 years with the university and our extension agency here in Morrison County.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blaine?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Wincher, for inviting me into the conversation here. And I'll just, gentlemen, I'll just give you the another view of the synopsis of this as being Morrison, Benton, and Stearns, you know, our tri-county arrangement is actually benefiting fiscally due to the fact that Extension is experiencing turnover in their Extension educators due to retirements. And so we're bringing in some very aggressive and very knowledgeable younger agents who are coming in to serve the counties in this role now. And because of their tenure or being new to the arena, that price tag has reduced. So all 3 counties are saving a significant amount of money. The other point I wanted to make is that in recognizing that cost savings, we are all of our counties will have these individuals basically working at full strength. So we will all of our agents will be working full-time. And we're able to achieve that and yet still able to achieve cost savings. And this is just part of that transition that we have with time. But I think Commissioner Wincher and I and certainly the Extension Committee is very pleased with the staff that we have now, and are showing a tremendous work ethic and ability out there, and we're noticing that with the individuals in the county who are engaged with Extension outside of ourselves. Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 3-year contract.
Thank you, and I think Suzanne did hear the end of that conversation, so.
Okay.
All right.
Next, social service report. Welcome.
Morning again, Katie.
Commissioners.
Being as it is Adoption Awareness Month, we thought it'd be good to give you some statistics on what we're doing with our state wards and kids who are ready for adoption. So thanks, Katie.
Yep. So, just a brief explanation about what a state ward is. So a state ward is a child who is under the legal custody of the state, and that occurs after parents' rights have been terminated, and then the child is free for adoption. So they do remain a state ward until their adoption is finalized. And so, Commissioner Wincher, your question earlier about if you have to do foster care, if you can just adopt, technically you're fostering until they're no longer a state ward at that finalization date. So I just put some data here for the last 5 years. Our state ward numbers are pretty consistent with last year. You can see the trend is downward a little bit, and I think that's partly due to the efforts we've been making to really try to keep children in homes when at all possible. Our adoptions, you'll see the second color, the darker navy blue there, are down over this year. And there's a variety of reasons for that, but just like everything else, most of that has to do to COVID. So COVID impacted our work in finalizing adoptions because there was delays when these children are in their child protection case, and so there was some delays with court hearings not occurring and things like that. Once they became state wards, background checks were suspended for the majority of the pandemic. And so, as I'll talk about later, all these kids were adopted by family members. And when family members come forward and want to adopt a relative, they have to go through our licensing process and get background checked. And so, when that was on hold, we were kind of stagnant in our ability to move forward with that. And then also our delays at the state level for approving the adoption. So once the county submits paperwork to the state saying, okay, yep, we vetted this family, we believe they're a good fit, and we send it off to the state, and they have to approve all of that before we can move ahead and set a court date. And there was significant delays with the state getting that paperwork back to us, putting their stamp of approval on moving forward.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
if I just might interrupt you for a second, Katie. I realize that we work for the county, but yet we're talking about state. Is that just nothing more than a term? State ward, county ward, state ward, township ward? Can you kind of hit that a little bit? Or?
Yep. So when children are state wards, they're under the Commissioner of Human Services. And so, yes, the county is the one that is entrusted with making decisions for them, making sure that they're safe, but they're called a state ward, even though, I mean, the state does have to give, like I said, their approval on it, but they're not the one kind of doing the day-to-day work in finding a home.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner, it does create interesting relationships when you have state wards and DHS, because if guardians need some specific things, we have to get permission from the state, like some medical care and other things, but for the most part, they delegate all the authority, most of the authority to the county in working with those kids.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So on this slide here is just a breakdown of who these children are. So I think on the first slide, it said we had 21 state wards in the year 2021, and the majority of them are living in a home that desires to be their permanent adoptive family. But again, that paperwork is just, most of these, actually, our paperwork is at the state, and we're just waiting for responses. 3 have been successfully adopted. We had 1 youth that aged out, which means that they turned 18 while still in foster care before a permanent home was able to be found. And then we have 5 state wards who are not in pre-adoptive homes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But some of those have they've been in homes that people have wanted to adopt them, and then things, because mostly their behavior, have disrupted, and so then they come back to, and really a lot of these kids have high needs. They're kids who are running away, they're violent behavior, they have often probation or criminal involvement, and so they're in our group, like residential type settings, sometimes group homes. But cumulatively, those 5 alone have spent 288 months in foster care. And if you're not as great with math like me, I had to do the math because that seemed like 288 months for 5 kids. It's 24 years. These 5 children alone, they're all minors, have spent a total amount of 24 years in foster care. 2 of those have both had 2 failed adoptions. So we've had 2 families say, yep, I want to adopt this child. And then because of circumstances surrounding the child's behavior have said, you know what, we can't do this. We can't meet this child's needs. We can't keep them safe. So that is certainly the downside of this work.
And just to point out 3 words in that comment, they've experienced significant trauma, not just because of the failed adoptions, but whatever happened to them in their parental home. And so it just makes it tougher. And then every time you have a failed adoption, it's more trauma. Parent or adoptive parents give it every effort, and unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yes, thank you, Brad, for highlighting that.
Mr.
Because
Chair,
that is
if I may, you brought up when you had one that aged out, and again, we've been told this many times, but when that person or child ages out, they don't kick them to the curbside, I'm hoping. I mean, they have other opportunities, but in a long run, they're on their own, I'm assuming, correct?
They are essentially, we do offer extended foster care for youth who age out. And so what that means is that they can continue to be in foster care or a supportive living environment where we're assisting paying, maybe it's rent, and that's through grant-funded money, and that can go up to the age of 21. And so, yes, we don't kick them to the curb, right? Because a lot of these kids are coming out of facility living. They don't know how to live independently and pay bills and take out their garbage and cook meals. So we use that time as an opportunity to kind of support them, make sure they have set up what they need while they're learning those skills of independent living. And of course, that is voluntary, however, though. So we do have some youth that decide at 18, right? They've been all these years, they felt like we're imposing our rules on them, and they say, I don't want anything to do with the county, I'm done. But for the most part, youth are pretty receptive to our help in that extended foster care program.
And if they do leave at 18 because they're adults now, some of us who have kids, our kids turn adults at 16 or whatever, but they want to leave at 18 because they're an adult, they're tired of living under our rules. If, say, at 19, they are struggling, we will offer to help them continually up until 23 years of age if they need it. So even if they decide to leave care, we've brought some kids back into care because they needed that support and are ready to maybe have some support and positive relationships.
So this slide is just illustrating the time prior to the termination about how long kids were spending in foster care. So there's a federal requirement that kids have timely reunification with parents, and if they can't be reunified, that we move to adoptions without delay. Because like I illustrated with those 5 children, the longer they spend, the more trauma is being caused to them by not having a permanent setting, and the less likely they are to be successful in their placements. And so we've really been making efforts to be timely about that. So this just shows the last couple of years how many months they're spending in foster care prior to that termination. And as our goal is under 12 months, and last year, or so far, I'm sorry, in 2021, we're not quite to the end of the year, but we have managed with the children that are being adopted to keep it under 12 months for all of them. And then, once they're adopted, the length of time spent as a state ward, again, we're trying to do that as efficiently as possible. I would say just prior to the pandemic, we were having that primarily under 6 months. Now that we have some delays, like I said, with the paperwork and the background studies, it's a little bit longer. There was a couple of them, that were in that 7 to 9 month range. But my hope is, as things run more smoothly at the state level, that we can continue to make those occur more quickly. And then this slide is just illustrating who is adopting these kids. And so over the last, again, 5 years I went back, we are seeing the trend of more and more relatives adopting, where it used to be years ago, gosh, when I started almost 20 years ago, it was primarily non-relatives, right? People who we kind of had in our pool already at the county that were licensed, people with good hearts saying, I want to adopt these kids. And as time has gone on, we have more and more family members who are willing to step up, which really is the ideal situation for kids because they have a relationship with those people. It is less traumatic. We still do need those other foster homes because there's some kids that don't have healthy connections. But definitely we're seeing that more and more of these adoptions are occurring with people that the children already know and have a relationship with. So actually, of the 3 adoptions we did this year, they're all relatives. None of them are in homes where they didn't have a relationship prior. And so that's pretty amazing to see. So, what questions do you have for me?
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie, where I want to go with this is that span of time or the location of these children in that span of time between finding a foster family or foster parents for these children who are wards of the state and or the time that they complete adoption. Do we have facilities in the county, group homes, or so what happens with these individuals do you understand where I'm going
Yep.
with that, in that frame of time?
Yes. So a lot of that happens in the child protection case before their state wards. Because we're searching right away. From the time we need placement, we're looking for relatives. If we don't have, let's say law enforcement goes into the home in the middle of the night and they maybe try to call grandma and grandma doesn't answer her phone, but they need a place for these kids to go, we'll find a foster home that serves maybe a short term. So, right, they're going to keep the kids safe, and then we're immediately looking, are there other relatives, family members, people from school that might know this child and willing to take them in. So we're doing that work often before adoption even occurs, because in the case with relatives, these children were with those relatives from the very beginning of the child protection case. For those children who might be in a foster home, and sometimes it is with a relative that they foster for a while and think, well, as a grandparent, I'm too old, this child deserves, a younger family, that if this is going to be forever versus just, a 6-month type of situation. So what happens is we can recruit. There's a couple different methods depending on the child. The state has an exchange where children's name and information can go up. Those are generally, though, I would say they're not used all that often because usually we have family who is willing to adopt. But if we do have, like with these more challenging ones, the 5, there's the adoption exchange that they can go on. So people all over the state can, if they're looking to adopt, can say, oh, yep, I'm looking for, this criteria, and they can look for the kids that might qualify. There's also, sometimes we work with adoption recruiters through a local agency that assists with trying to seek out families that would really be best. And again, that's for those high needs kids where just any old family probably isn't suited to meet their needs.
So in answer to my question, we don't have a situation where we have children who are wards of the state who prior to adoption are located somewhere other than being in foster care?
No, I mean, on occasion they're on run, but really, if they are wards of the state, they're in foster care. And that could be, again, with a relative or not. It could be in a group home setting, but ultimately, yes, they're in foster care. So they're court-ordered to be there.
But, and so that group home setting, the facilitators, I'll say, of that group home setting would technically be foster parents then, correct?
Yes, loosely defined, yes. They're the ones providing the day-to-day cares for the child.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I hope that answered your
No,
question.
you did, thank you.
Any other questions? Not, we thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Very good,
Thanks,
thank you,
Katie.
have a great day.
All right. Yeah, Cindy and Sarah are here to talk about special needs basic care. This is a service we provide to those who are disabled. And two reasons, again, just to give you an update, and then also we are creating new relationships with our health plans to increase the level of services that we can provide to those individuals. So Cindy and Sarah are going to give you some background, then we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with some of our health plans.
Good morning.
Commissioners.
Morning.
So Brad gave you a little bit of a refresher, but this is for people who are eligible for medical assistance, ages 18 to 64, certified disabled. And so we are providing care coordination for their health care services. So really coordinating, pharmacy, doctor, transportation, and really trying to reduce unnecessary hospitalization. So if you remember, this was a population that was served by South Country Health Alliance. And now we have two different plans that these individuals are being served under, Medica and UCare. So Medica is being managed by social services. We currently have 109 members in that program. And that member will be assigned whether or not there is a case manager. So there might be an adult mental health case manager, a waiver case manager, or somebody else, but there's still a care coordinator that can help coordinate their health care services. So whether or not they engage or not, they will be assigned a care coordinator. Now, we ask that they cooperate with like a healthcare risk assessment so we can better understand their healthcare needs and try to engage them in services and understand, long-term type of needs that they might have. They don't have to cooperate with that. They would still be assigned a care coordinator and can call us at any time for anything that they might need, but we would prefer if they would engage in that service. And so what happens is once they enroll with us, we send out a welcome letter within 10 days and really work with them in that first 60 days to engage them in that health risk assessment and try to go out and see them and learn more about them. And then after that, it's a semi-annual and annual contact, face-to-face contact or phone contact, or anytime they might need something, they just give us a call. So if you remember last year, we didn't have what was called the dual plan. So if they were on Medicare, that they received those benefits elsewhere, which was a really kind of a loss to us because with South Country, they did have that integrated product and people really like to have both in one spot. And so starting January 1, we are going to be able to offer that integrated product to our members. And so this kind of shows you what that would look like. So the first column is everything that is offered in that integrated product, and the second column is what is offered without that integrated product. The biggest benefit being people for the last year have been asking about that gym membership and just having that benefit, and without having that integrated product, we weren't able to offer that. But with this, we will be able to, so I think that's exciting for members. And also their prescription drug costs will be all in one plan versus having to, again, show two different cards, two different types of benefits. So as you can tell, there's 7 extra benefits that they will be offered to them with this new integrated product. The next slide just shows our Medica member involvement. Member, I had talked about that health risk assessment and trying to engage these members. So this shows you that 20% of that 109 engaged in that health risk assessment, 41% refused, and 39% we just weren't unable to reach or they didn't respond back to us. This next year, I really want to see that percentage go up and really work on engaging these members. Last year, having everybody kind of come on at once was a little bit difficult, but hoping to spread that out along the year and engage these members. So I'm hoping next year when I bring this, you'll see these numbers look better.
And again, it's been an interesting year and a half since we've had this product too, because people are a little more isolated. They're trying to kind of avoid contact, and so hopefully now with changing times, it'll impact these numbers.
Yeah, just, it's so hard to try to engage them by the phone and not being able to see them face to face, and so I'm hoping that will look different.
Good morning. SNBC under the U-Care benefit is paid for and managed just a little bit differently. So when we look at this slide, it talks about the new enrollees. So the blue line is the number of enrollees, and the number we were reimbursed for is the red line. And basically, what happened is because we had that large number of people that signed on in June and July and August because of the way the contract with DHS went, we had a big influx. Then that died down and it comes back again next year. So U-Care sends us the member list, and it's a large list for those first couple of months. If we can get that person to answer their phone and engage and accept some services, they stay on our enrollment. If not, they drop off. And so that's why you see the seesaw. And then 10 months later, we get an opportunity to engage that person again. This model is actually going to go away the first of the year, and U-Care is going to do this differently. They're going to pay us based on the time we spend with a member instead of pay us for 2 months and not for 10 months. It'll be a little bit more of a level platform for the member because they'll be able to use that care coordinator all year long and not just during that 2 months when we're trying to catch up to them. So that's why this looks so lopsided. The other thing that U-Care is going to do is right now, if they have a different case manager, so mental health case manager or anybody else with the county, U-Care hasn't allowed us to work with them. They're going to change that the first of the year. Right now, we get reimbursed just for those 2 months, and then we don't for the rest of the year. Next year, they're starting the first of the year, the stratified care coordination model. And what will happen then is for members that do engage and we spend time doing work with them, we'll get paid a larger amount. And so the more time you spend with the member, the more you'll get reimbursed. So it should be a little bit more of a level playing field. This integrated product, just like with Medicare, was not available to our members here for the SNBC population. As of January 1 of 2022, it will be available. And they are expecting that payment model to actually roll out with all of the U-Care products by the second quarter. When you sign on with the Medicare or Medica and Medicare, U-Care Connect, that's the integrated product. You get more support, just like Sarah said. It's one card instead of 3, one phone call to get your needs met. They have some of the additional things like the gym membership, et cetera. And they get some benefits, so if they go in and they do some preventive care, they get vouchers for gift cards that they can spend. They also get some pharmacy reviews and increased dental services that they didn't previously have. So go ahead, Sarah.
So this is our revenue per month since we started with these two products. So you can see the differences between U-Care and Medica. Medica is paid a lot differently than U-Care, and I'll have Cindy explain U-Care, but Medica is paid per member per month. So we receive $90 per member per month, no matter if they're engaged with that health risk assessment, no matter how much they call us, no matter, just straight up $90 per month.
And UCare, again, they pay us for 2 months, that if we don't engage that member, if they don't return our calls or do a health risk assessment, they drop off. So that's why you see that large amount of revenue in June, July, August, September, and then it drops off until we re-enroll them back again next spring. We're hoping that that will be a little bit more steady and consistent with their new tiered model of reimbursement coming up.
Yeah, so you can see the next slide, that Medica, over that time span was about $136,000 compared to UCare, which is about $213,000. So, well, I'll be curious to see what that looks like next year with this new model, but that's what it looks like right now.
We suspect that UCare is trying to reduce what they pay us, and so we could certainly see that number come down. But we hope that it, we can still continue to provide the services that they need with what they're giving us for reimbursement. Questions?
Sounds good. Has anybody got any questions? Commissioner Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sarah, this one I think is for you. Special needs basic care, in fact, I think it's for both of you. Special needs basic care 18 to 64. Are those individuals historically living by themselves?
Yes.
Or, okay, so they're on their own, whether it's a private home, whether it's an apartment, it doesn't make any difference. They're on their own.
It could be people on their own, it could be people in foster care, it could because they're
Okay.
certified disabled, but I think,
Okay.
are they excluded for foster care?
Yeah, most of these folks are gonna be living on their
Yeah.
own or with a spouse or with maybe their kids or their
Okay.
parents.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Because yes, if they're in foster care, they'd be in a different plan.
That would be if you're underage, of course, but now we're 21. Now we're on our own in this grouping that we're talking about. So what happens to you're not 18 and you're not 64, you're under 18, obviously there's programs. What happens if I'm 65 and I live alone? But when I was 64 and lived alone, I was covered under special needs basic care. I'm 65 now. Now what happens? Or
We have programs in the elderly waiver, the over 65 world, so they can likely stay with the same company. It's just a new insurance policy based on their age, because the insurance policies are up to 64, and so we are always looking at those folks when they transition to 65 to get them on the appropriate programs.
Okay, it's just another step. Very good, thank you.
And they offer similar things. They have the integrated and the non-integrated. They're called MSHO and MSC Plus in the over 65 world.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chair, this may be more to Brad or to the ladies here, but Brad, since our exit from South Country and now with these two providers and the relationship that we have with these two providers now, the 30,000-foot perspective of how we're meeting the needs of these residents of the county with the change in provider. Not just from, I'm kind of getting at this from the fiscal sense. We're not, as a county, we're not ending up with a void in reimbursement or anything. Do we feel that these providers or insurers are able to allow us to provide and meet all the needs of these residents of the county?
Since we've departed South Country, we have 3 plans instead of just one, so that creates a few more challenges for our staff. But I think we have created other efficiencies. Overall, I think the residents are getting the same level of support, care, insurance coverage that they need to meet their day-to-day needs. So I would say from a resident standpoint, there's not been a loss since we've left South Country and now have Medica and UCare.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? If not, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike?
And then I have one other thing under Public Health and Social Services, if I could, please. I would request approval to appoint Steph Fighton as a new District 4 representative on our Public Health Advisory. She was a member. She put in her 6 years. She was able, so she could not re-up for another 3, even though she wanted to. But after they've been off for a period of time, they can again be appointed, and so I reached out to Stephanie and asked. She does work in the healthcare field and is very interested and has been a great member to our Public Health Advisory.
I'll make a motion to approve Steph Eiten, Mr. Chair.
We got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by
Jelinski.
Commissioner Jelinski. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess here to get ready for the next one?
Good.
About time we just started.
There's not as much candy back there anymore, Greg. You can be okay.
I don't know if I'm gonna make it through that.
Go to the other one so it don't look like we're
You know, I'm not a huge person that likes drama.
Yeah.
So it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Kind of has been that way all year with him. With the last summer, or well, I think it was
the
day
summer?
of the draft with all the suddenly he wants to be traded.
Yeah. You know, he's a great quarterback.
He is, and I won't deny that. But I've always thought he just seemed like a selfish jerk. It was all about himself.
And you know, maybe the Packers didn't treat him right when they drafted Jordan Love. The same damn thing for him. It's
Exactly.
like you should have learned your lesson.
And it's, well, and I mean, I kind of understand that, you know, as far as, but since when does a quarterback make the decisions as far as who's, I mean, that's what you pay a GM and a coach and everything
I
else.
don't want the NFL to become the NBA where players come together
That's
and build their own
exactly,
teams. It's like,
that's why I very rarely watch NBA anymore, because I can't stand it because of that, so it's like,
what team? Yeah.
that's the last thing that I want. Yeah, it's too bad, because like you said, I mean, he is a great player, but he just, as a person, just kind of seems like a jerk.
Somebody I'd like to go out to lunch with just to have a conversation,
Right.
see if he can be normal.
Right, yeah.
Now I think I can get maybe a half, only this time I'm gonna make it, so it's not full.
Dump the old stuff out, Chris,
Yes.
see Jeff, and then you.
I think that's the first time ever you needed to call a potty break.
I know, 'cause I had drank coffee before I came here, and then I drank this gallon here.
Oof, that coffee's nasty.
So this should get over with in a minute or two, this here.
Yeah.
Should be no problem.
Oh, yeah. You have at it.
I'm having withdrawals, so.
Never did that.
Nope. Seen quite a few, but I only.
Human
one
service
big one.
report, that was a nice one.
Place too.
Yes.
Yeah, there's enough of that.
Yeah, it was.
They are running
like I
after
was
each
just
other.
saying,
It's
it was
amazing.
interesting.
The little bucks chasing the little girls, wide open.
And I said, I'm bucks, but
Okay, we will reconvene with land service report. Amy, welcome.
Good morning, Amy.
Morning. And hopefully it'll still be morning when I leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of items for you today. The first one is to consider the conditional use permit request from Galston Construction LLC. This is to establish a rental storage business in Section 21 of Scandi Valley Township. This was heard by the Planning Commission last week and was recommended for approval with 3 conditions. Those 3 conditions are: no outdoor storage of items shall occur at any time. The property owner shall abide by all stormwater requirements that pertain to the facility, and the property owner shall arrange for the Morrison County Soil and Water Conservation District to review the stormwater plan for the facility, and the property owner shall implement and maintain the guidance and direction received from the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Could I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussions?
I would just ask one question, Mr. Chair, if I can. You know, it says something to the effect of no storage not in the building.
Outdoor storage, yes.
No outdoor storage.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be actually better if it said no overnight storage? I mean, let's just pretend I bring something in, or I bring something over at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I drop it off. And I'm gonna store a couple things, but I'm not gonna get this done until 5 o'clock tonight. Could it be construed that it's being stored?
Well,
You know what I mean?
Kind of. The thought process behind that is that if you are storing something there, you have already arranged to rent a storage unit. So you are renting a unit, and you are going to place your items within that.
Yep.
And that the open space or the common space or the outdoor space is not available to rent.
Got it.
For
Very
storage.
good. That makes perfect sense. That's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Now we have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next item I have is to consider the interim use permit request from Antlers to establish a licensed residential treatment center. This is in Section 31 of Parker Township. This also was heard by the Planning Commission last week, and they have made a recommendation to deny this application. So that is the findings that you have in front of you, but I am bringing that now for your consideration. Mr. Chair, I am aware that the applicant is here, along with a couple of representatives from Ascension via Teams, just so you're aware.
So if we have any questions for them or anything, then we would invite them
Yes.
to answer those. So does anybody have any discussion or motion or?
heck, I'll make a motion for more discussion.
Motion which way?
Pardon? Oh, well, just a motion to hear,
Oh,
I'm not, whether I'm agreeing or disagreeing, just a motion to pursue with discussion. I don't know if that's.
second.
okay, we have a motion second to discuss this further. Who would like to start out any discussion?
Well, then I'll have at her since I know.
Okay, sounds good.
Everybody's scared of
A
this.
bashful group this morning.
First of all, I have a question for Amy. Is the applicant asking for a rezone from,
No.
you read my mind, from ag to any other type of rezone, so it's staying ag, is that right?
Correct. There is no request for a change in zoning district. It's a request to establish a use within the ag zoning district.
Thank you for that. In this case, again, I really appreciate at the meeting, at the planning commission, I mean, it was very professionally ran. The citizens there were very professional, And it was good information from both sides. They represented themselves, and of course, the applicant represented himself too. I look at this, and again, for the last few days, I've been just going up and down as far as what the reason that they're denying, the planning commission is denying it, and if there's some questions that I may have that maybe we can help out this applicant. I look at what, was brought up, this is agriculture. Well, I support ag, our comp plan supports ag, this is staying ag. So I think that it has no bearing on what the applicant is asking for. I do have a question about, there's a lot of permits that are still in there. And I see our county attorneys here, maybe I'll put them on the spot. Could we at all condition this, if it were to be approved or denied, could we put a condition on there that we just completely wipe out these current interims? Like, I believe there's a wedding venue, there's hunting, there's processing, because again, I have a hard time adding additional permits to some that already been there. So could we, and I know it fizzles out if they decide to sell. So is that a possibility?
Mr. Chair, in my opinion, it is. It's something that the county attorney certainly can clarify or speak to as well. But I feel that if you have some rationale for why you would be putting that condition on, then yes, you could ask that these be, the other uses that have been established be discontinued.
Okay, so moving that forward. And I don't want to take up too much time here. I'm sure hopefully the other board members will have something. There's also, and maybe the applicant can answer this question, it was brought up that they're going to have insurance providers come in. They're going to have people who pay cash for this, but they're not going to take court-approved people come in. How would one, if times get tough, if it's not a condition, they could actually say, you know what, we're going to start taking court-ordered. Thank you, Commissioner.
Troy, why don't you come up and sit up here and, in case, and you can help answer some of these questions.
And if
that
I'm
may
out of
come up.
line, let me know, Mr.
Yep.
Chair.
Mr. Chair, in response to that question, I think that that's probably a better question for the applicant, as far as that's a little bit more in their wheelhouse as to how they are able to dictate what their clientele is at this facility.
Troy, would you like to answer that question, please? Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me up here.
Morning.
I wonder if I was going to have to yell from the cheap seats. With me today, I have Bill Coleman and Seth Delinsky, who are with Ascension, our management company and partner. And I think that might be a really good question for them. You know, I certainly have a business reason for wanting to do that, but I think they can speak to the reason why we have chosen this programming, if you'd allow them to speak.
And I think the real question here is, you had made comments at the meeting that you were going to take not court-appointed patients, and they had to have insurance or pay for themselves. And Randy's asking that if for some odd reason, could that possibly change where you would take court orders and that type of stuff?
I think it'd be very unlikely. There's a definite financial model that we want to work within that would not only prohibit that financially, but from the applications and the business model and the folks that we have hired to manage this, it's just not within any of our beltway, I would say, to move that forward.
Did I state your question
Yeah,
properly?
it did.
Okay.
You know, again, and I know you didn't give me a direct answer. You said highly unlikely, so that means it probably could.
I'll say no.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Amy?
If I can clarify, I
Please.
think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Commissioner Winter is asking is we all have this idea that this is what we would like to happen, and as we know, some of the other uses that have occurred on the property haven't turned out exactly the way that we have planned or haven't been as lucrative as we wanted. So when there is a need to fill the beds, what is that kind of go-to plan, I guess, if this doesn't pan out? Is that what you're asking.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to answer that? Seth or Bill?
Bill.
Bill's
think-
muted.
I don't know if he's muted or if it's. I don't know if you're muted, Bill. Oh, Bill is muted, yes, Bill, if you can unmute, but I still am not hearing you from an audio perspective. I don't know if I need to change my.
I can, yep, you'll probably need to change your go to device settings in that menu you were just in. Nope, in those ellipses. Yep, device settings.
Oh, there it is on top, thank you.
Okay, and then you're gonna want to go to speaker and go to boardroom, digital output, boardroom. There you go. Now you're probably getting
Seth,
some
if you could,
feedback.
or Seth, if you could mute, and Bill, I think can we hear you now, Bill, if you're gonna answer?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Seth, can you mute though?
You can mute him.
There you go, okay, go.
Can we get rid of the echo?
Yeah,
what we tried
that's
to do.
gonna be that feedback loop that happens here, so.
Okay, Bill, go ahead.
If it's all right, I will try to speak in response to that. You know, although we aren't marketing to Rule 25 or taking people that are court-ordered, there are exceptions to that. And that exception would be someone that's court-ordered, has insurance, and has an interest in treatment. There are a number of people that are court-ordered that have already been in jail for a period of time, and they would, and often are, I mean, really voluntary admissions with the court order. Those people would be accepted. Almost every program has some number of people that are court-ordered and voluntary. The main point of our services is that all applicants and residents are voluntary with insurance, and some of those may in fact be court-ordered. And that is the reality.
Thank you for that.
And if I can expand on that,
Okay, go ahead, Seth.
our screening process for the admissions is very thorough. So even if someone is court ordered and says, yes, I'm willing to come to treatment, we have a clinical screening process to make sure that they are invested, that they are safe for the facility, appropriate for the facility. And those are very rigorous screening tools that we use that are done clinically to make sure that everyone that comes into the program are appropriate for the level of care.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I will yield back. I do have other questions, but I'd like to hear the other board. Maybe they'll discuss them, so thank you for
Okay,
that.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'll take a bite out of the elephant in the room also. It was my understanding also that we're not, it's not only going to stay the way it is.
We can't hear you now.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Go to microphone.
Nor can I.
Go down microphone. And to yep, that one. Okay.
Okay.
All right, now, there we go. Thank you. Zoning is going to stay the same. So what we are going to do is, we're actually farming.
Yeah, once again, the audio is off for us.
We did hear you for a moment and then it clicked back off.
We're doing our best to get me confused so I don't think.
Go to audio devices. Custom setup, okay. Okay, then speaker, let's just double check all of them.
Still in the boardroom?
I need to see that. Digital output. Okay, microphone. Okay, you should be good.
Can you hear us now?
No, we can't hear them. Thumbs up if
I
you can
heard
hear
that
us.
comment.
Okay. Seth, can you hear us? We gotta turn the volume down somewhere.
Yeah.
I can, though there was an echo.
Yep, I'm gonna keep muting you guys every so often, because we're gonna just have one going at a time.
We need to turn the volume down, Amy, or?
Turn your computer volume down. Because you're using the microphone as your individual computer.
Computer volume, Brad. Yep, it's down now. All right, how about now if I try it?
Troy, do you still have your phone on?
Yes.
He does. You guys hear me now?
Yeah, turn off your phone, that might help.
Yeah, you,
It is off.
okay. It's off, like off.
Like it's
Does-
shut off.
If anyone else has a computer on that's connected to Teams, that might be the issue too, but.
Okay, now, let's give it a whirl. Bill and Seth, can you hear me now?
Just nod your head.
Evidently, that's a no.
Every time I unmute they can hear when I unmute my computer, but I'm getting that feedback from someone.
Okay.
So it's muted now, they can't hear me.
It's if somebody's called in that's in the room or something, that's where we'll get that. If you have more than one person connected to the Teams meeting.
Yeah,
in
there's
the
like
room-
four others besides these two.
Yeah, but are they in the room?
In this room? Are they in
Yes,
this room?
If they're in this room, that's usually where we're gonna get that issue.
Is there anybody that's connected to Teams that's in the room here? No?
Okay.
Go ahead and try it again.
So we got the property zoned as it is what it is. And it was, part of this property was farmed in the past, and if I understood correctly at the meeting the other night, there is gonna actually be more property farmed than there was in the past. Is that correct? And-
Yes.
and-
We currently farm 110 acres, and if this use is approved, we're abandoning all the hunting operations, and so we'll have somewhere around 200 acres will then
Oh.
be farmed, and we have a lease arrangement in place to do that.
Okay, very good. So I like the part about the increase in ag. I have to be very honest about that. I truly do. And the other thing that I think I thought maybe was missed the other night during all of the conversation was, if I want to come to this facility, I want to come here. Nobody's telling me in any way, shape, or form to come to this facility. I'm coming to this facility because, number one, I want to. Number two, I either have the cash in my pocket to pay for it, or I have an insurance card in my pocket that says I qualify to come here. Just for the fun of it, if I'm on the right page and if I'm on the understanding of this, in fact, Morrison County's umbrella policy, if you will, for Morrison County's employees as of this moment, and I'll just pick me as the example. If I wanted to come to your facility today, it's open, and I showed you my insurance card, and I went through all of the SOPs as the entering person, and I pass, would I be able to come to that facility at that time? I don't know if anybody can
And
nod
if
their
Seth or-
head.
Seth or Bill can hear you.
They cannot hear.
I can tell you that we know that the county's health program, Health Partners, would be covered in our facility.
Okay, and that's the question, so that answered that. The other part about the Rule 25, and I think I was very clear on understanding Bill, I believe it was Bill that explained this. If I'm ordered under a Rule 25 to get treatment, I think the condition piece that would fit in here is that it's funded through insurance or it's funded on private pay. It's not going to be, I'm anticipating, if I'm understanding it right, you're not taking state money on a court order type thing.
Can I just clarify that? So Rule 25 is funded, you can be court-ordered to go to treatment whether you are eligible for Rule 25 funding or not. So Rule 25 is just for those who are uninsured or don't have a health plan that covers chemical dependency treatment. So court order is kind of a whole separate thing.
Okay.
Anybody can be court-ordered whether you make 12 million or you're in poverty.
Yep.
And so the funding piece is what they're not gonna take as the Rule 25 funding piece, which means they're uninsured or in poverty.
Absolutely, and that's not gonna go at your place.
Correct.
Okay, and I think that covers that Rule 25 question for me, or court-ordered, if you will, question for me. Mr. Chair, as of this moment, I will yield.
Commissioner Lemire?
I can go,
you
Mr.
have
Chair.
anything to say?
Previously, Commissioner Winter brought up the idea of that maybe you could eliminate your, I don't know if are they CUPs on your, are they IUPs or CUPs on the
Both.
game farm?
Both.
Would you be willing to let them go and accept this one if we move forward with it?
Absolutely.
All right. To my fellow board members and everybody, how I went about this, I used the criteria questions that were asked before the Planning Commission, and that's how I am going to bring forth my opinion on this. The Planning Commission found that it will not put an excessive burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities, so I kind of left that one alone because I agree with that. It's a business, it's, at this time, it's open, people are traveling down the roads. The request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. My answer to that is the applicant stated that he will be giving up his liquor license and eliminating the hunting on his property. The word detrimental means to cause harm, and I do not believe that this treatment facility will be detrimental to the surrounding, to the immediate vicinity and the surrounding residents. This property is over 300 acres in size, and there are only 18 homes within 1 mile of the facility. And this is a residential treatment facility. It's not a feed lot with 1,000-foot setbacks, which will impede on your neighbor. So this should not hinder adjacent property owners from doing what they want on their property. Third question. The use, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment. Groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by the proposed use. He already said he's going to eliminate a 400-gallon-per-minute well with the possibility of having to drill a 130-gallon-per-minute, I believe it was, well. That's a net gain there of water usage. So water and groundwater should not be affected. It's already a commercially run business. They will need licensing and permitting from local units of government. Their septic system will need to be monitored by the MPCA on I assume, a routine basis. It's currently they currently have an outside recreational area, and the new facility with the residents will also use that as a recreational area during their break periods. An IUP is allowed in our ordinance and looked at by a case-by-case basis, which this is, and it is a residential facility with individuals residing for up to 90 days. Question number 4 states, the use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Well, again, by ordinance, we allow this for consideration of a treatment facility within an ag district with an interim use permit. That's why we're here today. The property is zoned ag and will remain ag, and actually it's going to be increasing its ag usage from 110 to 200 acres, leased to individuals. I know at the Planning Commission, it was mentioned that, that residential development on County Road 49, that we voted that down because it was on ag issue. Well, it's not even in the same ballpark, because that was changing a rezone, that was changing agricultural land to residential. This is gonna remain agricultural. Can't lose sight of that. The applicant stated that they will be expanding the ag land. Number 5, the use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or water plan of the county. Why or why not? Well, again, there's already infrastructure there. There are buildings there. They have workers there. They have customers. They have deliveries in and out of the facility. In our comp plan, under Local Economic Development Goal C1, it states that we support efforts to build a strong and varied local economy that provides adequate employment opportunities and access to goods and services needed to county residents. We hear all the time that people don't have access to adequate addiction treatment centers. This is an employment opportunity. They have 50-plus employees with over $2 million, in wages. Objective 1, call attention to Morrison County's physical and human resources as a business attraction tool to promote Morrison County and its communities as a desirable county for business startup and relocation. I could go on to Objective 8 under local economic development. As you can see from how I answered those 5 questions, with maybe the condition of getting rid of the hunting and getting rid of the other IUPs, CUPs on the property, and have this sole, what's the proper term for your facility? Residential treatment facility. I would support this, Mr. Chair. I will have more possibly in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Blaine, do you have any questions?
I'm enjoying the conversation. I'll look to you, Mr. Chair, if you have a thought or comment.
I would have to agree with a lot of what Mike said, because I've kind of answered those questions in the same manner. First of all, I want to really stress the Board of Adjustments and Planning Commission, that they work real hard at these things, and I think they've got one of the toughest jobs that we have up here. So I don't want to slight what they decided, but I also think I can answer these questions in the positive. The thing I did get out of the meeting that night, that I appreciate all the questions, and I want to thank you folks for the fact that when you talked about daycare, that you were willing to, if those people lost daycare, that you were willing to give them a contract to use those spots for employees at your place that you brought up. The septic system, that was a good question, because I didn't think of how that would happen with waste from humans, with drugs and stuff like that in them. And the answer to that question, I think, was MPCA is going to form a plan for you that will have to be one of the conditions. And I think back to Randy's a little bit when he talked about license. I mean, if we approve this, you still have to get all the licenses that you need from the state and everything else. Otherwise, this will never happen. Service is a long way. I looked at that one as, I'm sure on site you have staff that deals with medical and people getting out of hand and stuff all the time. That's what your facility's about. So I'm not too concerned about that. And people checking in and out, people checking in and checking out anytime. I think what that is, through the proper channels they can check out. It's not like they just run uptown and go whenever they want to go. It's got to be the procedure and the plan that they have. And then I looked at other things. In our county, I get phone calls from people whenever we deny something. The question is, they feel that raises their taxes, because that's a area that taxes is coming in from. And so if we deny those things, then they have to pay more taxes because you're not, because we didn't allow that to happen. And I believe that we don't have a facility here. I think that night it was stated that it probably wouldn't be used a lot of locally, but I think it would be used to whoever wants to use it, that meets the qualifications. And I appreciate that. And then the big question I asked myself, would I want to live by this? And I wouldn't have no problem. If it was behind my house, I wouldn't have a problem. It's a medical facility, and I would. I just don't have a problem with that personally. So I guess that's all I got, unless we have to add on to any more. Anybody else have anything to say? Commissioner Blaine?
Well, Mr. Chair, do we have a motion?
It's just for discussion.
The motion, again, just to clarify, just because I made the motion doesn't mean I'm for or against it.
Right, you made it for discussion purposes.
So, so my comments on this are probably going to come at this in maybe a little bit different perspective here. In the sense that when I look back to the discussion that's taken place on this proposal, and one of the things that kept coming up was the fact that we're going to be dealing with a certain perspective of people, or a certain set of people out there. We're going to deal with these people here, and we're not going to be dealing with these people, the Rule 25 people. And so the concerns that were brought by residents within the county, and so if you guys can't tell, where I'm looking at this is with the underlying responsibility that I have as a county commissioner to the people of Morrison County, in the fact that I'm charged with dealing and ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Morrison County. So when we look at that, the concerns brought by residents or people in the county about a facility like this, the answer was that, well, we don't have to worry about the Rule 25 people because we're dealing with these people. We're going to select the people that we want to deal with. And I understand that from a business perspective, you may have the opportunity to choose your clientele. And the supporting part of that discussion was the fact that these people will either have high levels of insurance that will also kind of distinguish them, or that they would have deep enough pockets to afford this type of care. This will be high-level care to help people who have high-level issues with addiction. I don't doubt that the intention by the applicants is where they want to go, or how they would want to proceed with this. My concern with this is the fact that we have federally funded government health insurance basically forced down the throat of the residents of the country, and the fact that the federal government and I could say even our own state government has really made it imperative that we don't distinguish between people. And we're going to treat everybody the same. And everybody, that was the thrust of government-funded health care, was we're not going to pick winners or losers. And everybody will have access to health care. Everybody will have access to treatment, and that's how things will be. In if the thrust of the answer to the concerns of health, safety, and welfare that have been put forward by the residents who live in that neighborhood, the answer to that is we're dealing with these people and not these people. How can I ensure that in the future that the government will not dictate to the leaders of this organization that they don't have the right to pick and choose who attends that facility, because the government may be paying the bill for everybody, just as Commissioner Jelinski says. Our own health insurance plan within Morrison County would allow that to happen. So with that instance in my mind of not being able to ensure that thrust of that argument, I think that creates a grave concern for me in being able to say I'm providing for the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the county and especially the residents in that area. Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Again, I know all of us commissioners listen to the residents out there. I mean, I have, and I look out, and everybody who knows me, I am very pro Morrison County. I mean, people know I'll do dang near anything for the Morrison County people because I'm very strong with their opinions, what we do, and help out the county. I take very pride in what I do as a county commissioner, but we have to wear our hats and switch them around sometimes. And me personally, I look at not just for those residents, but I'm gonna look out for the whole county. Is this something that may or may not work? I'm trying to listen to what the residents have to say, and I got my cell phone here. I've got so many things going here. So I listened to the Ascension's brief summary in that one second one. I don't know if I may read that for you. And it says, our residents are supervised 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any person leaving their unit must first sign out with a specific and approved purpose. All residents are accompanied by staff whenever on the ground. And again, I'd go on all this, that's kind of briefing. And it was brought up safety, you're 20 minutes away. I'm looking at this here, they're gonna have people in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, that are probably more well equipped to handle somebody with challenges, problems than most people. You're also, I look at, okay, this is a safety issue, whether it's fire or policing or whatever. Yeah, you're 20 minutes out there, but you residents are out there also 20 minutes away too. So again, I look at that, it's really not gonna help by stating that, we're considered, or we're conscious about these residents be here, but I'm out here because I'm also 20 minutes away. So again, that has no bearing on. But I'm trying to help out both sides here. And now I have a question for Amy, and this will probably go to Autumn. Could we split off a part of that where they have their buildings and maybe 5 acres, 10 acres, or is that, and then not rezone it as ag, but say this is the partial that you can operate within your means, and the rest is gonna be, farming. So that's a question I have.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure, so the question is, do we need to assign the IUP to the entire 320 acres, or can it be dialed in to just have a land use right on a portion of that? And the answer is yes, it absolutely, you can grant that variance, or not the variance, you can grant the IUP to a portion of those parcels or a maximum acreage. The property itself is combined or is comprised of about 7 acres, or 7 parcels, I believe. So it could be that IUP could just be granted to the parcel that those buildings are on and nothing else. So that definitely is a possibility, yes.
Thank you for that. And listening to residents out there, a couple of them made the comments that Autumn Antlers changed it around. They did a great job. And I'm assuming they would do a great job here too. I do have a problem with it saying that this is a commercial business for profit. Well, and again, it was brought up in ag. If somebody puts up a chicken barn, I'm assuming they want to make profit on that in ag area. I don't think that is a good reason whatsoever, because there should be out there for made for profit. It was also brought up that, again, it wasn't verified or whatever, that this is a billion-dollar corporation. And again, don't care if it is or not. I don't care if it's a dollar corporation or a billion-dollar corporation. That should have no bearing on what their decision be made, because of the fact that I'm hoping that they're gonna be out there to make some profit. Also, now I'm gonna go into the whole wide county. Over the years, since I remember, we have to be careful by not allowing some businesses come into town, because again, you as residents out there may be able to work at this health center facility. And it also, the taxes is brought up too. These can employ a lot of people. We've been denying some people the fact that they want to do this or want to do that. I mean, we can't be just come a bread and breakfast. We need businesses here to promote hiring people. And again, who knows what if someone can get employed there or not. And again, whether they drive from the cities, I don't know if they would do that, but maybe they would. But I'm looking at the numbers. And if we could maybe help out the residents and say, hey, keep this in one location, and we're still promoting the agriculture, keep it safer, maybe they can fence it in, that portion, again, I don't know, that's another whole thing, and I have no reason for that. And then another last thing, it was brought up about real estate. It's gonna affect my real estate. So lo and behold, I called a couple of realtors, and that one is such a hard to define, okay, because whatever type of environmental we're in, I mean, did I lose 5,000 by this coming in? Did I lose 50,000? You can't, then they both of them stated that it's a real hard one to define as far as whether their land values are going down. If, again, I'm gonna say, you put up a chicken barn, and all of us county commissioners heard that, my land values are gonna go down, my water, this and that. And again, that's such a hard one to distinguish that, again, I don't believe that should be part of it. So as I'm saying here, there's things that I would like to have them do as far as part of this condition. And if we can't, then I may have a hard time voting yes for this. So yield it back to you.
Commissioner Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I was here last Tuesday as well as everybody else and heard very clearly those that testified, the neighborhood, if you will. And I did hear, and I hope that I have this close to a quote, that this was all jammed down our throat. Don't know. For those that don't know, I spent 30-some-odd years in public safety. I sent those emergency vehicles to your house, to my house, and to other people's homes. Whether those emergency vehicles were law enforcement, ambulance, first responders, or fire. I've heard this 20-minute thing given out several different times. If we call for services, it's going to take 20 minutes. Don't know where that magic number came from, doesn't make any difference. That's really not true. I probably live 6 miles away from here. Could it take 20 minutes before a fire department got to my house? Absolutely it could. Could it take 20 minutes before an ambulance could get to my house? Not a question. Could it take 20 minutes before law enforcement could get to my house? Absolutely it could. I think we have to be very careful with the theory of, here's a facility, and it is going to take X amount of time before any emergency services can get to us. Not exactly positive, but if I'm gonna bet, and I recall Tuesday, I think you spoke of Randall as the fire department. I don't even think Randall is the fire department. And am I correct in saying that I'm right on that one?
Swanville.
Swanville's the fire department. Swanville certainly has a first response team that I'm very well aware of. Certainly have a fire department. I'm very clear on that. And I just think that the 20-minute thing is could it? Absolutely. Could it take 30 minutes before somebody got to your facility? Not a doubt in my mind. I just don't know those answers. I don't have a crystal ball to play with that. In all respect to Commissioner Wincher, you got 300 acres there. To suggest that, well, what we need to do is, just making this up, is to survey off 20 acres, including the buildings, I don't know that that's fair to you. Part of my theory, in my mind, of looking at that facility is, my goodness, in the aspect of therapy, to be able to take clients out of that setting and into the setting of the wild, call it whatever you want to, nature. I think that's part of the theory of picking that location for this organization. Mr. Chair, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Has anybody got anything else?
Do you want a motion on the floor at this time, or do you want us to complete our?
I have to
Our comments.
question my procedure once. When Randy made a motion for discussion, you seconded, I probably should have asked everybody,
Yeah.
do you accept that motion? Why don't I do that right now so we get that motion off the floor? We had a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Let me, if we signify we're saying aye, does not mean we're.
No.
It was just for discussion.
I just want to clarify for that for everybody out there.
Right, it was-
I know that, I
Yep,
just wanted to make
okay.
sure.
Because that way that motion will be off the table and then
Okay.
we can move to the other one. We have a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now, I guess we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this IUP for Autumn Hills Behavioral Health Care Center.
Need a second?
Would you add conditions to that?
In our discussion, we'll go there. That's what my plan is anyway.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think Commissioner Jelinski, were you seconding that?
I will second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
There you go.
Commissioner, or Mr. Chair, again, we have our county attorney, would we be able to eliminate any existing permits, interim permits, conditional use permits? And I understand they have some deer out there yet. Could we put a sunset on that and say, okay, let's give them 6 months, these are all gone, and there's no legal action against us? I'm hoping that, hey, you know what, it always says that this stays with the land, these permits do. So in this case, or unless they consider getting out of it or whatever, then there's a sunset on those permits. My question is, can we do that?
Commissioner Wincher, I think Troy they're gonna be gone in 3 months.
We would agree to all of those conditions and would do it within 90 to 120 days.
So I guess if you want that condition, that's probably okay, huh?
And is that okay with our county attorney? Is that something that, he's sitting back there?
Yes, that should be fine, especially if the applicant is willing to agree to it, that.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like that part of the conditions of this application.
So, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear, you would want to set a sunset date for the conditional use permit and the interim use permit that have been granted to the property.
Correct. And might as well make them all the same rather than say, let's
Yes.
get the liquor of this and that. I would like, if 120 days, I think that would be sufficient, and then it's done. So that would eliminate any hunting, that would eliminate anything on this.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, you also want that to go for the liquor license as well?
Yep.
Is that agreeable?
Yeah, we wouldn't need a liquor license.
Thinking that might be agreeable.
I sure would hope not.
This meeting, but not for this.
And my point is, Amy, I want a clean slated, no
Yeah,
other
absolutely.
permits starting other than this one that we're
Okay.
gonna be looking.
Mr. Chair, I just will remind you that this is an IUP, so another condition that you'll need, that you would want to consider is an end date for this IUP that you're considering today.
So how do we usually do it? Would you do an IUP on a establishment like this?
You could do it several different ways, so there needs to be an end period. So, as you know, in the past, that can be a date, it can be an event, it can be a certain number of years. So those are the things that.
Ownership type stuff, or-
Ownership, yes. In this case, and that's one of the beauties of an IUP, is that this is something that you have the discretion to say, we're gonna see how this goes for a few years, and then we're gonna have you come back, and we're going to, you'll have the ability to renew it, or something like that. So this is, and the county attorney you may want to tap him as far as for help with how to craft that, if you want to have an opportunity to circle back and revisit this permit at a certain time frame. So it can be lots of different ways, it just needs to be addressed.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
I took to heart what I heard the other night from the people that were speaking here. It wasn't a waste of their time to speak, and I hope they all know that. And the jam down your throat one sticks with me, and I mean it in all respect. So what would happen if, let's just pretend, I have no idea when we can open this facility for business, but let's just pretend it's January 1st, for the sake of an argument. Could we put a condition that says 1 year, you need to come back before the board? I don't know how how it would be worded. And at that point in time, at the very, very least at that point in time, let's just think of the ugliest situation that there can be. Law enforcement has been called out there every month, 7 times a month. Pick some, whatever it might be, to be able to have those records, or perhaps to have law enforcement physically here at a year from now to say, you know what, it's not making it. To where at that point in time, we can just say, hey, sorry, it's not making the grade. End of the IAP.
IUP.
I'm sorry, end of the IUP. Now, I'm anticipating that you and the company are saying, bring it on, because you've got to be that confident that this place works. That's just I'm just talking out loud is all I'm doing, as an example.
I guess that I would probably, I think a year's time isn't even enough time to get things started and see how things are going. If you know, most of the time with IUPs, don't we put the condition on that if the property's ever sold or to another venue, then that's when they would come in and discuss it with us? Isn't that kind of how we've done those in the past, quite a few of them?
It is, but it doesn't obligate you to do that every time.
Right.
The flexibility of an IUP is that you really have the ability to try on a use in an area and allow that use to be established and have the opportunity to revisit it. And that's really, it's kind of like that intermediate area between a CUP and not allowing it at all. So, this is a tool in the toolbox that you have with an IUP to address any concerns or have the ability to circle back on something if you feel it needs to be revisited or re-examined or reopened.
So if you reopened an IUP, let's say we had a 5-year condition on there to where we wanted to just come back in and get a report and so forth. That doesn't mean that that we'd have the ability to shut them down at that time? we'd have the ability to maybe condition something else if there was a problem somewhere? Or can you
Mr. Chair,
explain that
yep,
to me?
it depends on how you write the condition, and I think I certainly would want to tap the resources of our county attorney as far as if he has some immediate thoughts about what that would look like. I know the board does have some discretion with how they word that and what would happen at that 5-year period. If, I'm just saying 5 years, but yes.
I just think, Commissioner Jelinski, that a year's time, it's probably taken them 6 months to get the permit. You know, it's just kind of a short time.
And Mr.
period.
Chair, all due respect to Commissioner Jelinski, he was just using it as an example, so he
Yeah.
wasn't for sure on that one. But my point is, I would like to bring this up as a discussion. If I don't know, what's the name of your facility gonna be again if it
Autumn
passes?
Hills.
Autumn Hills. So if I'm Autumn Hills and there's this IUP on there with a 5-year, 1-year, whatever, I'm investing all this money in here, then that board can say, you know what, we're not gonna renew it in 5 years. So why, I don't know if that's possible, and I just want that for discussion, see, so.
Mr. Chair,
agree.
that was exactly what I was gonna say. I think when you're looking at a time frame, you wanna also balance that with the investment into whatever use is that you're considering.
I would suggest to go with the ownership of the property.
I would too, I would like that.
And then I'm gonna throw another kink in there. This is a little bit more difficult because if we put the ownership, they're a corporation, so maybe I don't know how that is. I understand that, but I would like that explained, say, okay, if they just put it in his name as a privately owned, now is it because he's going from corporation to a private owner, can it stay? I just throwing that out there.
I think that's certainly open for discussion as far as how you want to see that. It needs to be.
You understand the intent of what I'm saying.
I understand the intent
So
of what you're saying.
we
I
have
think
to
our
write it
ability to
properly.
track that and to be able to know when that change is triggered is important to define.
Troy, we need an end date. What kind of end date would you suggest that would fit into your plans and that would serve our need?
I certainly understand the concerns. If approved, you want to have some accountability if we don't follow through. I could easily volunteer to be here once a year voluntarily with our team or members of our team and give a presentation on what we're doing and how things are going, whether you've heard of it or not. I also agree that, to use real numbers, we will have invested in excess of $8 million in this. It'd give me a little heartburn to wonder if there's a different board up here in 4 years, and the 6 months prior to coming to see you, I have someone who doesn't like me decide to call the police every day and run me out of town after that sort of a commitment. So, and that's an extreme example. So I think somewhere in there, there has to be some fairness if approved, but we're certainly open to being scrutinized. I mean, we've brought in one of the best, if not the best, group of experts who do this in the country.
I think, though, I think we have to have an end date, and that can, when we talk about the sale of your property, or if you're not involved, that's what Randy was kind of referring to. How would we word that? If you're not involved, or then it's a corporation, I think that's what we're kind of looking for.
We're only a corporation for liability purposes, obviously.
Okay.
We wouldn't want to hold any business in our names personally for risk of liability, and everybody's got an attorney nowadays, so, I think your condition could be predicated on my personal involvement in the business in some way, how you word that, or within the ownership, would be up to you. I think that's probably a better mechanism than trying to define a timeline. Certainly, if there are calls and there are problems, I think you would have the ability to get us in front of you before any predetermined timeline.
I think I'm just talking again, I think if we would use Troy as his involvement in there, that's the time. We've done that with a lot of businesses. If they sell it to somebody else, or they're not involved anymore, then the new entity would have to come before the board and talk to us and do things.
And Mr. Chair, to help
Yeah.
out, we do need a sunset, that's
Yeah,
required.
we do need a
We're forced to have a
We're forced
sunset
to
on an
have it, So
IUP.
we're gonna have to say, this is the date, so if you, upon your retirement, upon you getting out of it or something like that, we need to know that, because the fact that we as the board are required to say, we need to know more about this business if you decide to get out of it, so.
Yeah. We don't have any plans to flip this or anything of that nature. Could somebody pop up 2 years from now, potentially a year from now? I mean, who only knows?
I guess
But
I
you could
think that-
condition it on that.
I think that if we would put down that as long as Troy is involved in the corporation, that, and if Troy's not involved, then people come to us to describe what they're gonna be doing and that they're not changing things, and then we have that kind of discussion. Would that give you an end date, Amy?
Mr. Chair, I just would need a means to verify Troy's involvement. I don't have a great ability to know what his affiliation or involvement or stake in the, so I understand what you're saying, I just don't know how I would be able to track that or keep track of it. Because the way corporations work and all of that, it's difficult for me to know that. So, the other thing I guess that could be done is placing that burden on Troy as far as where on an annual basis he would provide a written statement that he is involved, and that really is his word to say that. And I guess I would be more comfortable with that than putting that on the Land Services Department to try to somehow verify that. And that's really going to be, on the applicant to be seeing to it that happens. I think that would be how I would be comfortable with that if you wanted to
Mr. Chair, if
go
I
in
may,
that direction.
could we state something like, if it's no longer a treatment facility, it's done? I mean, because if he
Well,
wants to
that-
sell everything to ag,
Yeah,
now we
Mr.
don't,
Chair.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, that is all you are granting, is an IUP specifically for a licensed residential treatment facility. It cannot morph into something else. You don't have an IUP for everything. So that takes care of itself. If that use ceases to operate or to exist for more than a year, then just by default, that land use right goes away.
Well, that would be a good end date then, would it not? If the facility doesn't exist anymore, the IUP's gone?
Whatever you want. It depends.
That kind of makes sense.
It depends on what your comfort level is with the applicant in front of you being involved and at the helm of that, or if it were to sell and continue to be operated by another entity that may change a business model. So I guess that's really the question that you would have to answer there.
Upon the sale of Autumn Hills as a chemical dependency facility, I'm probably using the wrong language, upon the sale, could it be worded that's the end date? Upon the sale? It's sold?
It
it's
certainly
sold?
could, but I don't know how I verify that, because people buy companies all the
yep,
time, and I
yep,
wouldn't
yep.
necessarily know that, so.
You're
So
right.
that's the only
Yep,
part that I.
gotcha.
Our ability to verify
Yep.
that would be difficult.
Amy, why don't you tell me what we could write then?
So I guess going back to what Amy said before is,
Yeah.
could Troy verify in writing
Yes.
annually to the Land Services Department his involvement with Autumn Antlers Properties LLC?
So what I'm hearing is that your comfort level for granting this IUP really is tied to Troy being a part of the business. If that is really what your comfort level is, then it would be natural that when Troy is no longer has a hand in overseeing or participating in the operations, that you'd want to take another look at it. Doesn't mean you wouldn't grant another IUP, but you want to take another look at it. Then what I would suggest then is that he he make a written statement to the Land Services Department on an annual basis, attesting that he is actively involved in the business. Something like that, I guess. If you're like wanting to tie it really more to his individual involvement. If it's more, if it's on a broader scope, then you'd be looking at some different language if it's not so imperative that Troy have a role.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with that too.
We'd want to put in there, though, a treatment center. So again, Commissioner Jelinski's saying if they sell it, but if they sell it as ag, well, then that wouldn't be part of it, so
And it'll lose the IUP.
So we
when
should
it's
just
done.
make sure we put the treatment center in this. That,
Amy said if no longer a treatment center, the IUP's gone.
So, Mr. Chair,
Automatically.
right,
so we could build into the condition if you wanted that he attests to two things. One, that it's continuing to operate as a licensed residential treatment center and that he provide the proof of licensure, and then also that he is involved.
that would be great,
That-
because this way, I think then we
I'm fine
would,
with it.
so.
That's what you want.
I just don't want, I'm just throwing that out suggestion, but we have to have probably a more solid end date on this.
Amy, do you have enough information on the questions for the record?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions,
Comments?
comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm kind of, even a person like me is detecting the direction of things moving here, so that if we're writing language, I'm going to hope that we can maybe be definitive if there is a permit. The Commissioner Jelinski had made the point a couple of times about the comment that was made about something being jammed down people's throats. Commissioner, in my dialogue with the residents of the area there, I think that really referred to the beginning of Autumn Antlers a number of years ago, certainly prior to me ever being able to sit at this table, and probably even before you were a county commissioner. And there was what I felt were sincere concerns by the residents out there over the actions that took place with the formation and development of that business over time, where it was very conceivable to recognize for these residents out there that that business was changing from what it was initially permitted to be back in the day. And the concerns by the residents were that their voices were never being heard when there were concerns brought back to county officials and county staff on what was happening out there at that time, which I feel is unacceptable. But that was, I don't believe the residents were saying that Mr. Hextra and his organization were coming to them trying to jam something down these residents' throat. I think it was something that had taken place in the past. All that being said, I think that there also has to be recognition of what has happened in the past without defining that business at that point in time or throughout its changing, and that if there are concerns that we should maybe define this business when we craft a permit there. So I would I would like to see us maybe have language in that permit that's more definitive, if that's the direction this is going, that says that this is what this business is right now. And if there is going to be a permit granted, it'll be to run this business in this form, rather than allowing the business to have a generalized permit and then morph into something else without any interaction by the public and/or this governing body. And so the applicant, in their presentation at the Planning Commission, I believe, was to ask for a 50-bed facility. And this, I can ask Troy to clarify that, but I would ask that that type of clarifying language be included in permit rather than just worrying about where the hell the end date is on the permit, so that we have something that is clarified. And my other comment, Mr. Chair, is that I also recognize the fact that this has gone through the process and that the Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the permit. And that is my comments, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Amy.
What I'm hearing is that you would like more of a concerted, thoughtful approach to crafting conditions on this permit now, so that way if there are issues, there are some things that the county actually can address. I think what I'm hearing you say is that this is the time to place conditions, meaningful conditions, on this that give the county an opportunity to oversee or have some oversight on this facility. Right now, with the two conditions that I have, if I had a complaint from a resident regarding something other than that they didn't sunset their IUP, CUP, or liquor license, and that Troy did not submit certification to me, that's the leverage I have on that. They're really, if I had a complaint from a resident regarding any other thing on this, I would not have any jurisdiction or authority or ability to do anything regarding that. So I guess that's what I'm hearing you say, is that you want to have some more thoughtful discussion, I guess, or crafting of conditions that would be more responsive to some of those things?
Mr. Chair, I guess just from the dialogue between the board members here, and it was stated that there was a motion made for a interim use permit for a residential treatment facility. I look at that as being a rather broad statement, and I'm willing to engage in conversation here with Troy on this too, but that does, if that's what we're saying, what could, if this is approved and constructed, what could this grow into,
Yes.
turn into, or transition into without oversight by this board? And that's my concern, because I hear the concerns of the residents in that area, which is my district, because of that's what happened to the previous activities on this property.
Okay.
And so at the very least, I at least have to ask that we that there's some kind of boundaries that give us some ability to look at the activities, not just to what's proposed right now, but what could take place there in the future.
Like, for instance, what in the
Mr.
future are you referring to? Just so I know.
Would it be let's just say this as an example, I'm just pulling this out of my hat, but this is a licensed 50-bed facility, and then all of a sudden, business is booming, things are happening, and we're saving people and reforming lives, and now we're going to make this a 350-bed facility.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair? What I would suggest, and I think this gets at your concern, is within the findings, item number 6 is the applicant is proposing to convert the use of this property to a licensed chemical dependency treatment facility called Autumn Hills. The existing lodge building would be utilized for offices, meetings, and dining. The existing modular homes and an additional 3 structures would be utilized for patient sleeping rooms and detox space for a maximum capacity of 52 patients. So if we dialed in the granting of this IUP to include the addition of 3 buildings, maximum capacity of 52 patients, what that would do is if they were proposing any other construction, and we do have triggers in the ordinance, any expansion of use, which would be additional buildings, regardless of if it would be an increase in patients, would trigger another IUP hearing. And so if they were looking to add to go up to 100 patients, they'd be coming back in for an interim use permit hearing to amend their permit for that expansion. So is that what you're just more of dialed in with the language for the permit itself with those limits?
Mr. Chair, yes, Amy, that's helpful language but I would like that to be recognized within that.
Yes.
Directly within that permit. Troy, you understand where I'm coming from here? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I fully understand and agree, but the fact of life is that a year from now, 2 years from now, Troy could be in front of us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, could be in front of us looking to increase that facility to a 300-bed. Am I correct? He could be in front of us. Now, it would be, go through the planning commission motions and blah, 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 eventually getting here again.
Mr. Chair, even if he wanted to build a gymnasium, he would be in here for an IUP.
Absolutely. And it's at that point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, at the end of the day, if this board says no, end of discussion. Correct?
Correct. He'd still have the IUP he has always had. He would just be denied the.
For 52?
Correct.
Exactly, just as it is.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Jelinski, you are right, and that would be correct procedurally correct in that. The applicant, let's say that does happen 2 years from now, the applicant then at that time has 2 years of experience, records, and a record.
Yeah.
At that point in time, that he can stand on and/or we can review at that time and take into consideration for any type of additional activity he may want to take place, or they may want to take place.
Totally agree.
I'd like to clarify a couple things that I have questions on. Troy, your Antlers business, you would still be in that if the DNR didn't shut down the deer in Minnesota. Is that kind of right or no, or possible?
Probably.
I mean, that's one of the reasons you cannot do this anymore, right?
We were debating changing uses, and then that came along during our contemplating of these different uses, but I don't know how we would remain in business with that.
Okay, and then my other question was, Commissioner Blaine, you talked about business and stuff. I don't feel we should make restrictions on business on what can happen because of the fact, like you stated, that the state, we could all be under the same insurance policy, that we could, the way business is laid out today for them, the state could change things, the federal government could change things, so I can, go ahead.
No, please.
I'm kind of done, I guess. I'm just thinking, when we talk about business plans, what's available today does not mean it'll be available in 6 months from now. Things have changed so fast, so go ahead.
And I agree with you to a degree, and I apologize for jumping on my microphone and helping you lose your train of thought. The point I was making, Mr. Chair, was the fact that in the strength of the discussion between the applicant and resident concerns went back to how that would be mitigated would be through their selection of the clientele that would partake in that service at that facility. My point is, with looking at the history of what's happened with healthcare and government-funded healthcare and health insurance in this country, I seriously question whether or not they will have the ability to say, we can select whoever we want, and the government won't be able to force them to take other individuals. And that kind of gets at that argument of this is how we will maintain a safe facility.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have some closing arguments, or not arguments, but comments. First, I want to say that the Planning Commission did a great job the other night. They didn't not one of them support it, but you know what? That's our job to make the decision after that. I understand the concerns of the citizens, but you know, we as county commissioners, we have access to information that the Planning Commission doesn't have. We're aware of the issues facing our county through social services and public health and our sheriff. We know that there's an addiction epidemic in the nation, the state, and in our rural communities. We know how depression and mental health leads to addictions. We talk about it all the time. We know how addiction affects foster care and child placements. We just had a little tutorial on that. And addiction, depression, and mental health issues do not discriminate. They affect anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a Rule 25 person, I don't even know what that means, but it doesn't matter if you're that person or if you're a millionaire. It affects everybody. The individuals that seek treatment aren't bad people. There are moms and dads, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles. They got a stigma against them because people don't want to associate with people that have an addiction problem. And we have to start looking the other way and realize that these people need help. We don't have any drug rehab facility or dependency facility in Morrison County. All our surrounding counties have one. Some have up to 14. I know not all the patients will be from Morrison County, but some will. Mm-hmm. Part of our job is to provide for the health and welfare and safety of our citizens, and I believe this can offer those in need a help that they truly desire. And I think us as a commissioners, we should be supporting this endeavor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
Any other comment? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Amy, why don't you go through the conditions ones that we have placed on here?
Mr. Chair, I have two. One would be that the applicant agrees to sunset the existing IUP, CUP, and liquor license that is attached to the facility now. And then the second one would be that Troy Hoekstra will certify to the Land Services Department on an annual basis that Autumn Hills is operating as a licensed treatment facility and that he is involved in the operation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, on that sunset, are we gonna put a date of like 120 days, or could that, I would like to see something.
Yeah, within 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gives him time to.
Okay. And then also, Mr. Chair, on number 2, I guess the other part of that is that he'll certify that, but that the IUP would discontinue if, well, actually, a third condition could be that the IUP would cease to exist once Troy Hoekstra is no longer involved. Is that, okay?
Yeah. At least then they have to come back to us and talk about
Yes.
who you're selling it to or whatever.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if there could be a fourth condition that, and Troy has actually said that he would gladly do this, to come back to the county board a year from now, give us an update, and let's just pretend things aren't as gorgeous as has been presented in Troy's presentation, that we would have something to say about it at that point in time. Is that not fair?
Well, I mean, personally,
Is
I
that
don't,
just not
think, I
fair?
don't think it's fair in the idea that if I'm gonna invest all this money, that in a year's time, I just don't think a year's time is enough time to even.
And a year is probably the wrong, from the time they open up to where it is.
Mr. Chair, I think we would have to ask the county attorney what the county's ability to essentially reopen an IUP at various times, because I think that that's what you're saying is, yep, we want to revisit this in maybe 5 years, and if things aren't going so hot, we want to be able to make some tweaks.
And the reason I'm kind of asking this is because of those that testified, they had concerns, and I respect each and every one of them for their concerns. I'm looking at it in a gigantic picture here. I certainly want that facility, should this motion pass, to succeed. Good grief, we're using an $8 million figure. Certainly don't want it to fall on its face, nor do I believe that any resident would want it to fall on its face at that point in time. I mean, would be pretty crude to wishing that on you. But at the same time, as you are saying, to be able to come back and say, okay, yeah, we're really not what we said we were. It's a terrible run organization. I'm going way over to the other side. What control do we have?
Mr. Chair, if I could ask Brad a question, I think this might be a question as far as, I'm thinking the licensing from the Department of Human Services would probably have some jurisdiction over how this facility is run and the hard stops that would, I think when we're looking at this from a zoning standpoint, is that really where we want to be looking at this type of thing? Or do we have a level of oversight from the state that is kind of built into this that we might need to be considering?
Maybe.
Yes, the Department of Human Services will have oversight of the chemical dependency program. They will be required to follow admission policies, procedures. And back to one of Commissioner Blaine's comments too, even when you talk about a number of individuals at the facility, that's going to be dependent upon the building size and will be somewhat dictated by public health.
They'll set that capacity?
We'll set that capacity, but ultimately, they will be reviewed every 2 years by the Department of Human Services to make sure they're following admission policies, they're doing their treatment planning, they're seeing their clients, all of those things are happening. And DHS has or we would be notified if they are not abiding by the license.
Commissioner Blaine?
Mr. Chair, so with that being said, would a condition that would allow or not allow the IUP to continue or a trigger be the state of Minnesota? Could that be one of the conditions in there?
That they remain licensed or
Yes.
in good standing or
Yes.
something like that?
Well, I mean, Brad just says that that DHS
Yes.
has oversight of that programming there. Let's say they're licensed to operate that type of treatment facility stops.
Yes.
Does that give this Board of Governance then the ability to look at the utilization of that IUP?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as you see, some of our other conditional use permits and interim use permits, we have built that in that they abide by all local and state and federal laws regarding that type of facility. And then if one of those is compromised, then that is actually a violation of the IUP as well. So yes, that would absolutely be a condition that you could place on this.
Could we include that then as one of the conditions then?
And just to make clear that if they don't have a license, they cannot have people there for substance use treatment. So it does impact their ability to be a residential treatment facility. But I think the comment of having that in there might be good just because.
It gives the county the ability to revisit it.
Yeah.
Revisit the
Yes.
legitimacy of the
Yes.
IUP.
Yes.
Because the state can revoke a license because they're not abiding by the requirements. And we would be notified of that, and could be a chance that somebody could take over at that point and try to reopen it under a different owner, which you already have that in there for Troy being
That would be another
part of the
trigger.
process, so.
Mr. Chair,
Chair, thank you, that works for me.
can you read that again? What you gonna put in?
The fourth condition?
Yes.
Yes, the applicant shall abide by all local, state, and federal law regarding licensed treatment facilities. Then if our social services or public health department receives notice that that facility is not licensed, that would mean that they are not abiding by, and then that would be cause to call
Thank
them
you.
in.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second on,
One more, could you repeat all four of them, Commissioner? I mean, one more time.
Serious?
Yep. Yep.
They're all yours.
And I'll be going upstairs and crafting these, by the way, but this is what I have, that the applicant shall sunset all existing IUPs, CUPs, and the liquor license within 6 months of issuance of this permit, so it would be 6 months from today. That Troy Hoekstra personally shall submit in writing on an annual basis that the facility is continues to operate as a licensed treatment facility, and that he is involved in the Autumn Hills operation. That the IUP shall cease when Troy Hoekstra is no longer involved in Autumn Hills. And number 4, that the facility shall abide by all local, state, and federal law regarding licensed treatment facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for roll call?
We have a motion and a second to allow this permit to go through. This will be roll call, all in favor, with the 4 conditions. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
No.
And aye. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair. I will be back down with updated findings.
No problem. Thank you, Troy.
And that's all I
Good
have,
luck,
Mr.
Troy.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
thank you,
Amy.
Troy. Thank you, Bill and Seth.
Yep, thanks, Bill and Seth.
Let's take another 5.
Why wouldn't we?
Why won't we, huh?
That's exactly right.
We're as long as we get out
Thank you.
before this morning.
I don't think we're gonna make it before this morning.
Troy, thank you.
You'll be in touch with Michelle and Carmen and our environmental health folks?
Absolutely.
No?
Good discussion.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Good discussion.
What's that?
I think I'm just gonna let the hallways.
That's exactly what you should do.
You want that way too? No, you
I was in a meeting like this once and I had 142 people.
I think you should wait until the 142 are gone.
Well, thank you for all your work you've done.
Thank you.
We do appreciate the business
What's that?
coming to town.
We'll do a good job.
You're not,
They'll do a great job.
Yeah.
it won't work. No kidding.
No, I didn't.
That looks safe.
I'll go make sure everything's okay out there.
The nice part was. Ready, rather than maintain themselves professionally. So that was good.
I thought it was good discussion. I think the whole thing was
I shot a 75, my best round ever. My best round ever.
Good thing you went.
Was that 9 holes?
I wish.
You wish?
Hey, Steve.
I was gonna say you wish.
18. That was 18, then I stopped keeping score. We did 3 more before.
Wondering when lunch will be served.
Yeah. Morning, Chelsea.
Hey, good morning.
Steve, would you quit talking? We do have our attorneys on, here too, so I don't know how much longer it'll be, but they've been waiting patiently, so appreciate that.
I hope they're not paying. We're paying tomorrow.
No, there are no actions on lawsuits, so I think we might be okay.
Thanks for messing up the coffee. God,
I didn't mess up nothing.
it's just no good.
It's terrible.
They must not be using Folgers.
Oh, I think they're using not enough Folgers.
They're using used coffee grounds.
It's warm.
And everything, so.
Need an extra scoop?
Yeah, 2 more scoops.
Well, I'm glad this is over with.
Me too.
Now what's our next one?
Steve's getting closer, so I won't take so long to join the meeting.
Next challenge.
And as soon as he gets back, go ahead if you got.
The bank was just sold in town, I heard.
US Bank, the corner one?
I think so, yeah. I just got a text from Kathy Marshall.
I think yeah.
Kathy's relative.
Since we're talking about sold, where the heck did Rudolph's go?
They went back on the west side. You know where they used to be on the west side?
Right, yeah.
That's
So
where they went.
Okay. Cause I'm sitting over there.
Okay, we will continue this meeting. Auditors report. Chelsea?
Good morning. Before you, I have 2 gambling requests. The first one is for the Morrison County Ducks Unlimited to hold a bingo on November 28th at the Rice Creek Hunting Club.
So moved.
We got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Blaine.
Yes.
Is it roll call? No, okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next on the agenda, I have the Morrison County Clear Lakes Lions Club looking to hold a raffle at the Grub and Pub on December 4th of this year.
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Winchell, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And last but not least, I have a request to pay all the bills.
Okay, could I get a motion to?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to pay all the bills.
We got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? This is roll call. Yes.
I just shut it off.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
And aye. Anything else?
That is all I have today.
I thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Chelsea.
I was gonna vote no, so I could be consistent.
You could have.
I don't care if you vote.
Oh, Commissioner Blaine.
Okay, Public Works. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning, Steve.
Good morning. After 34 years, I know I better get this through very quickly. First request for board action is request for certification of completion on our Pierce project. There are 3 projects that were included in that. This was a joint effort between the city of Pierce and the Rich Prairie Sewer and Water District for the replacement of sewer water and reconstruction of the street. So we had a ribbon cutting a few weeks back, and the project's complete. We're asking that the board would certify that so we can make final payment to the contractor.
So moved. We got a motion by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Winchell. Any further discussion? This is roll call.
Aren't you going to do it?
Commissioner Winchell. Aye. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
And aye, and Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I thought you guys weren't going to agree to that.
We do have to stay on.
Yeah, great.
Did you want more discussion?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, then the second request for board action is something we've been working on with the county board for a number of months. The Snowmobile Club has asked that we would apply for funding to help them pay for a new groomer. We were successful in obtaining that grant. We have the grant agreement now that came through the DNR. I'm requesting that the board would authorize the resolution so I can execute that grant. And then we will enter into a second agreement with the Snowmobile Club to pass those funds on to them.
Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Administrators report.
The only thing I do have is that I just want to make the board aware for our AMC meeting in December that if you do attend, you are all delegates and can vote on AMC proposals. So I confirmed that with AMC the end of last week. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, nope, sorry, the board dates. Just kidding, yeah, the board dates for 2022 are in your packet. So we'll continue with the first and third Tuesdays of the month for county board meetings. And they're listed in there, and if they are, if you could make a motion to approve, I'll make note, December, of course, is adjusted because of AMC and to pay the bills. But we would need a motion to approve the board dates for
Motion to approve,
2022.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Winter. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else, Brad?
That is all I have.
Okay, next we got committee reports and your schedules.
Dates.
Commissioner,
I'm not ready.
oh, the dates,
Yeah, I'll need your schedules from November 14th through 27th.
November 14th through the 27th?
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Lemire, would you like to
Oh,
start?
no.
That way I won't have much when it gets to me.
November 16th, planning session, 8:30 here. Budget meeting, 10 o'clock here. 17th, public health, 5 o'clock, virtual. County admin interviews are also that day at, I have 8:30, that ain't right. It's 12:30.
To 8.
And the 23rd, county board meeting, 9 o'clock here, and that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Winter.
Okay, on the 16th, there's a planning and board of adjustment at 6 PM that evening. I also have a Great River Regional Library that evening at 5, so I have to decide which one I can attend. I have Tri-County Community TCC on the 18th at 5 o'clock. That can be virtual or I'll be here in St. Cloud. And then it's Thanksgiving on the 25th. I'm good.
Thank you. Commissioner Jelinski.
On the 16th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a 911 telecommunicators work group meeting. That's a virtual one, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. On the 17th, I guess I'm going to miss Hands of Hope due to our administrators' interviews. On the 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Owners and Operators meeting, 10 o'clock, virtual. On Saturday, the 20th, as I have done for a number of years, the organization called Partners in Policy Making contacted me and wants me to come down to the cities and again, be on a panel for them, and I agreed. So that will be Saturday, the 20th, in Bloomington. 3 Apple Tree Square, Bloomington. Is that good? Okay. Yeah, I will start about noon, and I'm gonna just say till 3 o'clock, if that matters. On the 22nd, besides board, I have, at 2 o'clock, I have a 911 telecommunications work group meeting, 2 o'clock, that's virtual. On the 24th at 11 o'clock, I have a Central Minnesota Executive Committee meeting, that's virtual. On the 25th at 12:30 in the afternoon, I have a state Emergency Communications Board meeting. That's virtual. Oh, you know what? I think it's canceled. That's right. Sorry, that's Thanksgiving. Thank you. Sorry about that. I apologize.
And then I'm sorry, I didn't catch what time on the 24th.
The 24th was 11 o'clock in the morning, probably my mistake in not saying anything that what time it was. That's, and thank you, yeah, you're right. The State Emergency Communications Board is not having a meeting on that day. It's done.
Okay.
Your turn, Commissioner Blaine.
You know, I'm trying to find, I think our Egg Society, I'm gonna say we meet the 18th, but I may be calling you with a change because I think there was some information came that they might be having a different date on that. Other than that, I don't have anything other than to let you know, Mr. Chair, that I do have an appointment on Tuesday, the 23rd at our board meeting, and I will leave our next board meeting at 10 o'clock that Tuesday, and so you guys will be free to finish really fast then.
Sounds good. Okay, I have on the 16th, Community Development, on the 18th, Airport at noon, 19th, Mississippi Headwaters up at Walker. And I have to question, on my calendar, on the 16th, I've got planned Board of Adjustment, is that right, or is this one of my old ones for that? Do we have Board of Adjustment on the 6th?
Whatever Tuesday is, we have Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment.
Yep,
But,
we do on the 16th, yes.
but not next, I guess that is, okay, so we do have that.
On the 16th, yes.
Okay, I will not be at that one because I've got another meeting, so, okay, that's all I have.
Just two, in your inboxes are two ditch authority meetings, the 16th and the 23rd, following the planning meetings and the county board meeting, so, during the day, yep, so.
Actually, those have changed.
Oh, did they?
They did, I was just looking, email, Sherry sent a revised date, it will actually be the 16th after planning session in November 30th.
So the 16th after planning,
What's after planning, or you changed?
the ditch authority,
It goes to the 30th?
16th and the 30th.
16th and the 30th. So one was adjusted from the 23rd to the 30th, so just one in this
You're
calendar.
just sending out a calendar. Okay.
Yep, Tabitha will send out a calendar event when she gets back.
And then I suppose, Mr. Chair, our phones will be, or everything will be going off when they send all those calendars for our.
For the board meeting next, yep.
Get one from our chair, cancel it.
Cancel them all, folks. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, nope, motion to move into closed session.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's right. Zach, that means you have to. I think that's what that is.
Thank you.